Do you have a paranormal story you want to share on Night Dreams Talk Radio? You could be a guest. Email us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark with our host, Gary Anderson.
Yeah, it's taken me a second longer than normal to do all the equipment here because I moved all these keyboards and all these mouses around. You talk about Mises and Mices, James. I got 8 of them I have to deal with now on the show. And 7 was bad enough. Now I have all 8 keyboards. I got these mices. Plus I got the laptop. I tell you what, from somebody who was a computer illiterate here 2.5 years ago, I think I've come a long ways to the point I used to have dreams about sex. Beautiful women. You know what I have dreams of now? Of a computer malfunctioning.
I don't know how you do it. And now your muscle memory is all messed up because you move things around. You have to retrain yourself.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier. I mean, having one mixer in front of the microphone versus off the side, that part is easy. It's just which keyboard goes to what? You know, I'm sitting here typing stuff in and trying to, I get all these emails during the show. I get that's the trouble with Speaker. Hardly anybody uses the chat. If you want to chat with us, you can get on the Speaker app and whatever you have to do, then you can get on and you can chat with us. But no, I get people texting me like crazy. I get a couple hundred texts during the show. I get at least 100 or so or more emails during the show. After the show, hundreds. I tell you, it's crazy. But I'm sitting there trying to respond to somebody, and I'm worried I'm going to disconnect one of the servers because now I'm, typing on the wrong keyboard. So I got to get used to all this stuff.
Yeah, you're going to get some of them stick-em notes and put up to remind you what's what until you get used to it.
Yeah, I guess I have to. I'll get used to it in the next day or two. It's,
Yeah. At the expense of a few people getting cut off or cutting yourself off.
I might cut myself off, but have I ever cut you off? No. You've cut yourself off with your Skype.
Well, that's a whole enigma of its own, Skype. It's its own country, so it's got its own personality. You never know what mood it's going to be in, no matter how nice you treat it. It still might be a little cantankerous.
It could be. Now, getting, on the moon. Why haven't we gone back to the moon? Now, I mentioned that before. The guest we had on Thursday, I think he summed it all up. We don't want to go back on the moon. As the nation, because we're already there. We have our bases on the backside of the moon. It's been there for probably decades, if not more. And when Armstrong and everybody else went on the moon, when they saw, like Buzz saw that, he said, look at these craft. They're big. They probably were our own craft. They could have been from our Space Force.
Maybe. I don't know who they were, if there was any, or if we even been there, but I'm sure we were there.
I think we honestly were the moon because you know why? One of my relatives went down and watched the rocket take off with a capsule on it. I have no doubt that we have been to the moon. The reason why I think we don't go back to the moon, there's some reason that we're not told. And you know what? We're not told a lot of stuff. But why would you want to spend billions and billions of dollars to go back to the moon for the nation when we're already there? And if we sit there and say, hey, well, you know what, people, we lied to you all these years. We have bases on the backside of the moon. We have a Space Force, for even going back maybe to Reagan time. But you know what? It'd make us look like nothing but fools and liars. So they're not going to admit to it. But why would they want to spend? They would procrastinate and come up with every excuse not to go back to the moon because that's a mass amount of money to go back, re-engineer obsolete, equipment to go to the moon when we already have maybe the state-of-the-art equipment. Think about that.
Well, here's another thing. Why, if supposedly helium-3 is such a great energy source, why wouldn't we go there and mine that? Isn't there end goal to things? What was our reason to go to the moon to begin with? Just say we could do it. I mean, once they found out what is there and what we can do with it, that was one of the theories I heard, was this helium-3 is a great energy source to mine it and do things with it. And I would think that would be something. You'd think in 50 years we would have been there, at least like you say, to practice to go to the Mars, that I don't even think we're even close to being ready to go there.
Well, maybe we already have. Haven't you heard Penny Briggs and some of these people? Okay, yeah. Like I said before, there's a lawyer in Longview, Washington. It claims he was, kidnapped as a child and brainwashed the same way Penny was, and tortured and then manipulated and then put into the Space Force. Now, here's somebody who's very credible. He's a criminal attorney. I mean, and it's a lot of people that are very credible. It claimed that they were in the secret Space Force.
Yeah, and I asked our guest Friday about our Mars lunar module, that were rover there. Now, it went up about 10, 12 years ago. I can't remember the exact date, and it was only supposed to last, I think, 3 to 6 months. It's still running, Gary, and I've seen pictures of it. It looks like somebody's cleaned it off, and he says there was a picture of what looks like a little shadow or something of a little man right next to it. And here's the thing: why is something that was only meant to run, or able to run 3 to 6 months, is still running 10 to 12 years later? That's a mystery in itself.
I really think about that, because the batteries that would recharge wouldn't, the technology, going back when that was built, the battery technology wasn't that great. So I find that it had to have been serviced.
Why is it exactly? Somebody's keeping up maintenance with that thing. How's it? It wasn't meant to run past, I think, 3 to 6 months, and it's going on 10, 12 years later. Somebody's keeping up the maintenance with it. Somebody's checking the oil and putting air in the tires, so to speak.
Yeah, and you would think if it's roving around on the moon, it would have been stuck, and that would have been it. But it hasn't gotten stuck. So a lot of strange answers out there and questions we just don't know. But I really feel that we maybe have a base. That's something you should do one of these weekends. Take the time, go on NASA's website, download some back pictures of the moon, and then, start blowing them up on your computer and look at the detail, and then you're going to be surprised. It's some things that pop out as this don't look kosher, as some people would say.
Oh, I've looked at some of those pictures. There's some of them that's looks like bridges, satellite discs. Some looks like buildings. And even like Penny was saying, and a couple other guests, that the moon was like a pit stop on the way to Mars for these secret missions that have been going on, space wars or whatever you want to call it. And so maybe that would be reasons for these buildings that we see or whatever they are. And some of them are extremely huge.
Yeah, they could build them a lot taller because you don't have the gravity, pulling to pull them down. The only thing you have to worry about is, hunks of rocks crashing into it. Because what I read too, the moon is really hit with a lot of rocks and debris. That's why they got all these craters. So, I don't know how they would protect against that. That's kind of scary. Or an asteroid hitting it or something,
Yeah, because when those things travel, even if it's just the size of a dime, those things travel at 50,000 miles an hour up to 200,000 miles an hour. So even something the size of a dime going at 1,000 miles an hour, that's going to cause a lot of damage.
Now, just think about this, okay? When they took one of those landers and crashed it back on the moon rang, right? Now, think about this. How many times have we got close to being hammered by an asteroid? Quite a few times. In fact, back 2 months ago, there was an asteroid that said it was going to miss Earth by between the moon and the Earth. It was going to, you're talking millions of miles away. Well, guess what? It landed up in the Mediterranean. That scared me big time. I mean, And they're saying, well, it's going to be a near flyby. Well, when they talk millions of miles and they miscalculated by that much. But again, I guess anything could change the path of one of these things. But what you would think about, wouldn't we be getting reports of asteroids hitting the moon? Why is it always coming by Earth?
Yeah, I've wondered that myself sometimes. A good point. Why is it always, you never see those things. You would think with all the eyes in the sky, with all the telescopes, with all the amateur astronomers and stuff, that they would see a lot more impacts, live impacts even.
No, that's what I'm saying. You'd be also hearing the supposedly if the moon rang when they crashed one of those landers on the moon. Well, then I think the moon would be ringing quite often, ringing out to us and saying, hey, we got hit again.
Exactly. That's what you would think so, because, again, you would think there would be video, at least one a year of an impact on the moon with all the cameras and people got focused on that, but you never hear or see any of that.
It would be more than one a year. How many near misses do we have a month with our planet?
I know.
And you think here is, right? The moon doesn't really have any defense, They have no atmosphere. It's supposedly no atmosphere on the moon, right? So right. If an asteroid starts coming into the, going to hit the moon, well, it's no atmosphere. It's just going to slam into it, isn't it?
Exactly. And, the stuff's not going to float around like it does in our atmosphere. It's just going to leave the moon forever. In other words, if there's no atmosphere on the moon and a pretty good sized asteroid hits it, when it hits at impact, it kicks up a lot of stuff. Well, on Earth, a lot of that comes back down, but I don't think on the moon it would come back down because there's no atmosphere and the gravity's real weak. I think it would just keep on going out into space.
Why aren't we seeing that? Now, isn't that kind of strange? Now, our guest on Thursday said, well, do we actually know for sure that there's no atmosphere of some sort on the moon? We're only going by what we were told.
That's my whole point. That's right. That's why a lot of people would think that we didn't go to the moon, because you're only what certain things they want you to see. But you didn't follow a non-interrupted camera on the shoulder of an astronaut all the way there, non-interrupted. Again, you only know what they feed you. That's why the conspiracy theorists say all that stuff. But again, you only know what they feed you, and you would think, seriously, if you think about that now, an asteroid or a comet, something hits the moon, it's going to kick up some stuff. And there's so many amateur astronomers out there, we would surely see a video of something spewing up, part of the moon.
Oh, you think about this too, okay? A lot of times these small asteroids, okay, they hit our atmosphere and bounce off. They do. They bounce off and continue on their way, wherever that is. Well, if they're coming in towards the moon, there's no atmosphere to bounce it off. It's just going to slam into it. Now, if we had all these near misses, and some of them, again, like I said, we had one hit the Mediterranean. We've had numerous ones come into our outer atmosphere and then, somehow bounce out and go back out. It tells me that the moon should be hammered a lot. Several times a month at least. But if you sit there, how many times a week is the asteroid coming by Earth now that we're hearing about it? It tells me that the moon has asteroids coming by it all the time. It's on the way to Earth. They're not getting hammered. Well, maybe, like I said, like our guest said Thursday, we've been lied to, and maybe there is an atmosphere on the moon.
Or another thing he said, that the moon is it's not what it seems.